God has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? Shannon and I frequently find ourselves rewatching Place, a comedy from a few years ago that follows the adventures of 4 humans in the afterlife. The show provides a not-so-subtle introduction to the world of moral philosophy, with the characters applying various ethical teachings to the situations they find themselves taught in, experiencing the consequences of those philosophies firsthand. At its core, the show asks the question, what is it to live a moral life? Or more simply, what is it to be good? What would it take for a person to truly belong in the good place? If you ask a question on the street, you receive a slightly different answer from most of the individuals that you talk to. Some might say that we should be generous or treat others with respect. Others would talk about being honest and obeying all the laws. Most likely, they would probably offer very love, or being kind, or just generally not being a jerk. As Christians, we could reframe those questions as, what exactly does God want from us? Phrase that will get you attending church, or being baptized, or calling on Christ for salvation. Some would say to just have faith, or trust God, or love our neighbors as ourselves. When the rich young ruler asked him directly, he offered specific instruction. Sell all his things, give the money to the poor, and follow him. What does it take to be good? What might we inherently owe to one another? What would make God happy? Those are big questions, ones that stop debating. Depending on the situation, you might come up with a variety of answers, but it would be hard to find one more straightforward than what the prophet Micah told us this morning. Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. The love, kindness, and walk are pretty self-explanatory, no matter your cultural background, but like the person who asked Jesus, "Who's my neighbor?" we tend to get a little more nitpicky when it comes to doing justice. There isn't necessarily anything wrong with that. Sometimes we do it because we genuinely want to understand specifically about or accidentally skipping a detail. Sometimes we just want to figure out what's enough and how to avoid doing more than we absolutely have to. However, I suspect that if we were to carefully examine ourselves, the real reason most of us would ask is that we want to convince ourselves that everything is okay as it is. We are already good enough, and therefore don't really need to undergo the challenges of repentance, of change. The way the Bible uses it, justice can be a confusing term. The Hebrew word Micah chose includes our standard idea of following rules or laws, but it suggests more. While it covers common sense ethical concepts like don't murder, don't steal, don't intentionally hurt other people, etc., it includes things that we as Americans wouldn't really associate with the justice system, like providing aid than ourselves, or treating people on the fringes of society with generosity, dignity, and respect. The justice Micah is calling for is based less in human legislation, less of what's right and wrong, and more along the lines of God's character. The same God who makes their sun rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. It's a sort of equitable, relation-based justice rather than the punitive and retributive kind we so. The justice God is looking for covers all the external actions that ultimately result from the character of a person who loves God by loving their neighbor. As you probably know, we're holding today's service. Well, it's easy to use that time to focus our attention on the more businessy aspects of church. The meeting provides a great opportunity to reflect on all the different ministries our parishioners are involved in, and the ways that we as a congregation are able to promote God's justice throughout. Because it turns out that those activities and ministries that we call outreach or evangelism or community development are often the ones that most closely reflect the Bible's concept of justice. And St. Andrew's has a really good track record at this kind of thing. There's the shoebox and trees, each collecting different items to distribute among people who might otherwise go without. The hospitality house provides lodging for visitors to Las Cruces who are facing medical and financial distress. Our El Caldito Soup Kitchen, which itself was initially formed and housed within St. Andrew's. And Second Sunday suppers continue to provide not only food, but a sense of dignity and belonging and solidarity with our unhoused neighbors and immigrant communities. We could even include the new solar panel system. Yes, hopefully it will save us some money in the future, but a big consideration in installing it has been an effort to participate in a sort of environmental justice, helping to care for future generations by caring for the creation God has entrusted to us. So please do take the time to read the report. St. Andrew's has a lot of great things going on and numerous ways to serve not only the neighbor sitting next to you in the pew, but also those well beyond our church walls. Prayerfully consider any ministry that sparks your interest. New help is always welcome. Or see a need, one that you can bring to the church and help us to do something about. So then, what is it to be good? What does God want from us? What does it take for a person to truly belong in the good place? We've been looking at it all backwards. The good place isn't just when we die. In fact, it isn't a where so much as a when. It's the community we build around and among us as our loving actions unveil God's presence throughout the world. Because truly, it turns out we carry the good place everywhere we go. So there is no need to wonder or worry. This is the good place. God has you, O and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? Amen.